Started practicing the religion because my life was going in a way that was very strange. Okay, like every young person in London, you kind of grow up and there's this urban force forcing you to kind of be a gangsterish and listening and just crazy stuff going on in London, you know. And I looked and I thought to myself, okay, look, this isn't right. I was around 14, 15 years old, and my mum would always just say to me, you know, Khalid, pray, pray. So I just took an nasiha, I started to pray. And mashallah, you know, at those days, you know, you had Jama'at al-Tabligh knocking on doors, going on 3 days, 40 days. So I went on 3 days and, you know, I went to Dewsbury, I went here, I went there. And then from there, you started practicing the deen. I found, you know, Muslim friends from my area. We just became like a big Jama'ah and everyone's chilling. But then YouTube started to open up at that time.
It was Anjem Chowdhury.
Anjem Chowdhury, yeah.
Did you come into contact with him?
I did come into contact with Anjem Chowdhury. I met Anjem Chowdhury on several occasions. I first came across him in 2009. At the time, it was kind of Sharia for UK, Islam for UK. We want to turn Buckingham Palace into a mosque and all of that. Very, if you like, it was polemics. He was using polemics. He was using, if you like, bombastic language to kind of get his view across. I brought some friends with me one time to one of their lectures, 2010-ish, 11. And they were just like, look, Khalid, man, this is not haqq, like, this is not haqq. And even though I thought to myself, yeah, this isn't haqq, man.
SubhanAllah.
This isn't haqq.
Qasim is like the real deal Saudi.
Yeah, Qasim is.
It's literally camels.
Yeah,
sand.
you don't get more Saudi than Al-Qasim, you know. The way, you know, there's nothing more American than a nice apple pie from Texas or something. You know, it's as Saudi as you get. No, I said, you know, Sheikh Abu Samadi advised me to go to such and such masjid and speak about such and such an issue, and he was like, yeah, man, you know, being from the Somali community, Khalid, you know, and I was like, bro, I'm from Nigeria, you know. Like, I don't understand.
إنك لا تهدي من أحببت ولكن الله يهدي من يشاء.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi, it's John Fontain. Just before we begin the podcast, please make sure you click subscribe and also set your notifications. And make sure you check out the earlier podcasts. We've up to around 40 podcasts so far. There's lots of podcasts there for you to benefit from. Make sure you check that out. Also, if you can go to the John Fontain YouTube channel as well, click subscribe, set your notifications, and also enjoy the other videos. There's a Fiqh of Love series, a series on Christianity, and other videos regarding Dawah. Also, if you'd like to support the podcast by supporting us financially with the equipment and the travel costs and the running costs, not just of the podcast, but also the other Dawah activities I'm involved in, please support on the Patreon account. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Welcome to the Young Smirks podcast. You join with me, John Fontain, and Sheikh Khalid Hassan.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
The Grand Mufti of Kano.
MashaAllah.
I'm only joking.
Yeah.
How you doing, Sheikh?
Wallah, alhamdulillah, I'm doing okay, mashallah, you know, it's good to be
here. You can hear the sirens.
Yeah, Brixton.
We're in the middle of Brixton, you know.
Mashallah, Madinah College, no,
alhamdulillah.
Yeah, no, you're safe, you're in safe hands, mashallah, so, yeah.
How you doing?
Wallah, alhamdulillah.
You know, I just want to thank you for joining me.
Yeah, okay, it's fine, mashallah.
I recently came across your content, and I like your approach.
Thank you.
I think you're very approachable.
Thank you.
And I think that's important. And now you told me you're from Kano. Now I know why, because you know Nigerians, mashallah, very you know, I have a very warm place for Nigeria.
Inshallah, mashallah, that's excellent.
So, Sheikh, you tell us a bit about yourself first, because you know, you've got quite an interesting history.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Yeah, you know, obviously my name is, you know, Khalid Zakaria Hassan, born and raised in the UK. Obviously, you know, like you said, you know, you kind of joke, you know, that I'm originally, you know, I come from, you know, I'm ethnically Hausa from northern Nigeria. Obviously, I say that not to differentiate myself with all Muslims. Nigeria's got Muslims from all parts of Nigeria, but obviously I just sometimes say that because a lot of people might have a particular view on maybe what a country is. So obviously I'm I sometimes try to educate people that, Nigeria is a big place, and, there's different ethnic groups, different qabail, different, tribes. So obviously I'm from the majority Muslim tribe, the Hausa tribe. So yeah, I was just like any other Muslim, I was born and raised in the UK. Obviously started to practice the deen, and, went through some stages like everybody, went through some rocky ups and downs. And then alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed me to go and study abroad. And I would say that's probably the greatest blessing of my life thus far. So yeah, inshallah.
This is, Nigeria, of course, I was telling you just before the podcast, I know a lot of Yoruba, and that's kind of like when someone from England, someone living in the UK thinks of Nigeria, they think of like Yoruba, Igbo, because there's not as many Hausa. Do you agree?
Yeah, because obviously,
a lot of them, they stay in Nigeria.
Yeah. Hausa people don't move. It's even it's seen as something which is shadh, something which is kind of strange to see a Hausa person outside of, Kano, Sokoto, Maiduguri, Kaduna, Zaria. It's very different. They don't leave. When they do leave, traditionally speaking, you'll find the Hausa people either in Mecca, Jeddah, Madinah because of the Hajj route, Chad, Sudan, they go eastwards because of the Hajj route. And then you'll find that they go westwards in the parts of West Africa because of Tijara, business. But generally speaking, the general thing in the UK is, the Nigerians, generally speaking, they're more southerners. They come from the south. There is a small Hausa community in London. I know of them. My family knows of them. But we're very small and everyone knows one another. Hausa people, the kind of culture is... people know everyone's family. You just say who your father is, who your grandfather is, and you can be found instantaneously. But yeah, it's always kind of funny when you speak about that, because when I tell people I'm from Nigeria, I always get a lot of different kind of, what are you talking about? You're from Nigeria,
Where do you think you're from?
They think I'm from too many countries, Some of them I don't even, but I've had, I remember one time I was doing wudu and one guy was just speaking to me in a language I've never heard in my entire life. So, I said, okay, brother, what are you saying to me? And he said, I thought you was from country X. I said, no, I'm not from that country. Sudan in Saudi, when I was in Saudi, everything was Sudan. But, Ahlan wa sahlan, they're great people, Ahl Sudan. But no, so I remember, for example, I'll tell people I'm from Nigeria and maybe they'll say to me, okay, mashallah, and they'll say to me a word in another kind of language from another tribe. And I'll be like, I don't speak that language, And it was very funny growing up because they thought I was trying to run away from my heritage. I was like, no, I'm not running away from my heritage. I come from a specific tribe and we have our different, So it was really weird.
A lot of people, they think Africa is like a country, like one place. And like Nigeria has hundreds and hundreds of languages and tribes.
Exactly.
You obviously got the three main big tribes, but it's like, they don't realize every tribe, even within one country, is totally different.
Totally different.
I told you before, like when I first went to Kano, it wasn't, I didn't recognize it. I didn't feel like I was in Nigeria because what I'd been exposed to, I used to Lagos and it felt like a totally different country.
Yeah, because obviously, when you look at, for example, the people that brought Nigeria and made Nigeria today was the British. Before that, we had the Sokoto Empire or the Sokoto Khalifa that was made by Sheikh Usman Dan Fodio, who created that. But even before him, there were Hausa kings going back to 700 or 800 years. So what happened was you had, when Islam spread, from the Maghrib down to Black Africa, as they call it. Number one, it started off from Spain. A big alim, Maliki alim, Ibn Abd al-Barr al-Andalusi. He has a sharh, an explanation on the Muwatta of Imam Malik, At-Tamheed wal-Istithkar. His students were Berbers. They were known as the Murabitun. The Murabitun are now a Sufi order. But before they were war kind of, Berbers on horseback. And they spread, subhanAllah, Islam to so many parts of sub-Saharan Africa. They went to Senegal, Mali, and places like that. From the remnants of that, Islam spread to other places. And some of that was kind of northern Nigeria. But to this day, people don't know how the Hausa people became Muslim exactly. The Hausa people, oral legend itself says it's been 1,000 years. The non-Muslims always say the 1300s, but Hausa oral tradition is it's been 1,000 years.
Because there's some theories, obviously, like you said, for because a lot of West Africa was all Muslim at one point. came from the Maghrib, from
Yeah,
Morocco.
from the Maghrib. Mhm.
But with the Hausa, there's some theories that it came from like the Sudan area,
Sudan area,
from the east,
exactly.
through
That
the
came from the
deserts,
east,
the trade.
exactly, exactly.
You know, it's a fascinating history.
It
you
is
know.
fascinating. It's fascinating.
And subhanAllah, and even, you know, the Hausa, they have that like kind of not Arab thing, but that thing where they know their lineage.
Lineage, yeah.
Because you still know they still know like the lineage from
100%.
Uthman Dan Fodio.
Yeah. Even before him, like my great grandfather, I'm from the descendants of the judges that Uthman Dan Fodio put in my area. So, for example, my grandfather, Al-Hassan Naba Damasi, he was born in 1880, okay? And he died in 1969, 1970. So he died around the age of 90. My father, Zakaria, Sheikh Zakaria, he was born in 1930. So so his father was a man called Badamasi. Badamasi was a businessman. His father was a person called Nasiruddin, okay? And he was a tradesman, and he had, in those times, they had, unfortunately, things like slavery and all that stuff was around, and then before him, his grandfathers were the descendants of the Qudat, the what do you call it, the judges that Uthman Dan Fodio put in a part of Kano, which today is called, the area that I'm from is called like Manladan. It's an area where I'm from, and it's known for people who recite Quran. A lot of Qurra come from there, or the major part of the city is called Qul, but yeah, that part, Hausa people know their lineage, and obviously, you have the Fulani people who came into our kind of region, but they never spread to us Islam. That's another thing. People think that the Fulani came and gave us Islam. No, the Hausa people are Muslim. The Fulani people came into our land, and there was Musahara. They married with us and things like that. But no. The Hausa people have been Muslim for a long time. Some people say it comes from the East, which is very, very similar. Which is not similar. Sorry, it's very plausible. But some people even say Libya because of the Sufi lodges there too. And Chad, Niger, Libya, that Sahel region is very. If we were to look deep enough, we can find it. Someone needs to go on a fact-finding mission, get the Arabic manuscripts, and look.
It's probably there's probably documents in Timbuktu regarding
That's it.
There's got to be everything.
That's it. 100%.
Because they knew everything what's going on.
Exactly.
And such big, powerful empires as well. They would have had this.
That's it. Yeah.
I want to speak to you more about them because they have obviously these big Sufi orders and things like that. I want to speak to you about that a bit later on. Because I want to speak to you now about like how you wasn't born a student of knowledge, right? You said you're born and raised in London. You was not born like this, right? So where did it begin?
Okay, so obviously, I was a youngster. Started practicing the religion. Because my life was going in a way that was very strange. Okay, like every young person in London, you kind of grow up, and there's this urban force forcing you to kind of be a gangsterish and listening, and just crazy stuff going on in London, And at that time, there was a lot of crime. Wallahi, there was a lot of crime. 2004, 2005, 6, 7, 8. There was a lot of, it was very difficult in those times, growing up. So you would go to school, and people have knives. Some people have sometimes even guns and things like that. So,
but you're saying that, and it's
in Brixton,
right in the central Brixton.
And different areas used to have different names. And when we were growing up, Brixton was known as Baghdad because of obviously the Iraq War at the time, and Baghdad. Vietnam, so. So on a serious level, you kind of had to belong to something. You couldn't just be an independent kind of student going to secondary school. So I remember going to secondary school, and there was all these gangs. There were like 5 or 6 gangs just fighting for power in school, and you had to be part of something. So unfortunately, education wasn't something that you were pushed towards. But then when you go back to your house, your parents are telling you, you have to do well, you have to go to school. Just like most, immigrant parents, do well, go to school. But then you go to school and you find that, and I can look back in hindsight, the teachers were just trying to stop fights in the class. There wasn't education going on. And because of that, you end up just, living this kind of life of rap music, people trying to, unfortunately, even at a young age, trying to get, women and things like that. So obviously, I never, alhamdulillah, did anything crazy, but like anybody else, I thought, let me dip my toe in the water and just see how it's like. It wasn't nice.
Especially from that house of background.
Yeah.
That is not like...
Yeah, I guess so.
SubhanAllah.
So, one of the things that my mum always said, she's always said to me, have Muslim friends, when you go to school, have Muslim friends. That's the nasiha I took from her. So I looked and I thought to myself, okay, look, this isn't right. I was around 14, 15 years old, and my mum would always just say to me, Khalid, pray, pray. So I just took a nasiha, I started to pray. And mashallah, at those days, you had Jama'at al-Tabligh knocking on doors, going on 3 days, 40 days. So I went on 3 days, and, I went to Dewsbury, I went here, I went there. And then from there, you started practicing the deen. I found, Muslim friends from my area. We just became like a big Jama'ah, and everyone's chilling. But then YouTube started to open up at that time, 2007, 2008, 2009. The YouTube thing is happening. So, at the time, obviously, the politics that was going on, certain Western countries, foreign policy, people that are giving da'wah are starting to say certain things, okay? And I came across some stuff, and, khilafa, and this is wajib, and going to this place is fardu ayn, and this and that, and it just caused chaos, because that was the da'wah at the time in London that was really prominent. The kind of brothers who were kind of calling to the sunnah, they didn't have the internet down at that time. The people that knew about, YouTube, the algorithms, what to do, it was, unfortunately, for lack of a better word, it was the people who inclined towards a kind of takfiri,
And of course, at that time, you had all these political things going on. And the media were also promoting that as well.
Exactly.
They didn't need YouTube.
Exactly.
They were on the 6 o'clock news every night, So, living in, it's not as big of an issue now, but like these takfiri type groups, can you explain what you mean by that?
Yeah, these takfiri groups, what you have to understand is that in London, in the 80s, even the 70s, 80s and 90s, you had a lot of political upheaval in al-ittirab al-siyasiyya, you could say, in the Arab world and the Muslim world in a broader sense, where there was revolutions, coup d'etats, this and that. So a lot of these people, a lot of these political dissidents in their countries came to London. Okay, when they came to London, now this is when I look back from a kind of, when I look back in hindsight, you're able to put the puzzle in place. So you had these people coming from the Arab world, political dissidents, trying to overthrow their governments, coming and seeking shelter in London of all places. But that's another debate for another day. Kufr. But then after you come to London, and they come to London. And then you have the Muslim community, from maybe the Asian background, maybe some from the African background, who had came in the 60s and the 70s, who are now in their 20s. You have mixed them with the political dissidents that have been kicked out of their country. And then you've got these British-born Muslims, first generation, identities being lost. And then these guys come in and say, no, revolution, this and that, all the leaders of the Muslim world are kuffar, we have to do khuruj, we have to gain the khilafah. And then these Muslims who are just growing up in the West, they don't know about their identity, they're growing up. It's going to be a cocktail for, it's going to be a dangerous cocktail.
Especially if you don't know the truth.
Yeah.
You literally...
That's it.
You're a slave to what the guy's saying.
Well, this is what I'm trying to say. You don't know anything better. So they'll tell you things like, al-kufr bit-taghut and this and that, and you must do this and you must do that, and we have to help our brothers in this country and that country. And you don't know anything better. You see, you don't speak the Arabic language. You don't know fiqh. You don't know usul al-fiqh. You don't know كيف يستدل? How does a person, extrapolate rulings from the Quran and the Sunnah? You don't know that. So you're literally a blank canvas, which is why even Ibn al-Qayyim even has a bait where he says, أتاني هواه قبل أن أعرف الهوى فصادف قلبا خاليا فتمكنا. يعني his hawa came to me before I knew what hawa was. But it ran across a empty qalb that didn't have any knowledge, and it made grounds in that qalb, because when you just don't know anything, you're an empty vessel, anything can fill it. And once you fill that vessel, it's very hard to get that thing out. So that's what happened. You did have brothers trying to call people away from that. But then even their usloob, the way they're giving da'wah against it might not have been the best kind of way, because Allah says, وَجَادِلْهُمْ بِالَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ. Allah says, and argue with them in a way which is better. And that's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talking about us debating with non-Muslims. So how about your Muslim brother? So when people have unf and they're being shadeed to you, and they're being really harsh towards you, saying that you're upon batil, upon falsehood, it's sometimes really hard for you to accept.
So they just reject what the Dawah.
That's
so
it.
You're talking. I mean, one of the main figures of that time for these kind of misguided groups was Anjem Chowdhury.
Anjem Chowdhury. Yeah.
Did you come into contact with him?
I did come into contact with Anjem Chowdhury. I met Anjem Chowdhury on several occasions. I first came across him in 2009. Very charming. Charming guy, clever man, loyal followers now. Some brothers from East London who now have all left him. They've realized, the truth. كل إناء بما فيه ينضح. So yeah, no, he was around at the time. At the time, it was kind of Sharia for UK, Islam for UK. We want to turn Buckingham Palace into a mosque and all of that. Very, if you like, it was polemics. He was using polemics. He was using, if you like, bombastic language to kind of get his view across. But no, I came across those guys, but there was other people. You had obviously, there was a, mashallah, Jamaican revert at one point, Faisal, if you remember, Faisal. And I'm only saying these names not to, some of these people, they've gone to their Rabb, they're dead. I'm not here to rehash whole old wounds. It's just saying it to speak about what was there historically. I'm not here to talk about and, if you like, slander anyone. But you had people like, for example, Anwar Awlaki and his kind of da'wah, and it was just chaos. So you had things like State of the Ummah lecture, 44 ways for supporting this or supporting that. And we don't know anything. In our, we're young practicing brothers. There's no students of knowledge in our area. There's no one. And I remember going here, going there, protesting outside this embassy and protesting outside that embassy, and just total chaos. And, it got to a point where I just thought to myself, is this sustainable? Is this really a sustainable way of practicing Al-Islam? Because if Islam is the truth, is the haqq, then it's something that's supposed to be sustainable. Allah says, قُلْ إِنَّ الصَّلَاةِ وَنُسُكِي وَمَحْيَايَ وَمَمَاتِي لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. Say that, قُلْ إِنَّ الصَّلَاةِ, my prayer, وَنُسُكِي, my sacrifice, وَمَحْيَايَ, and my life, وَمَمَات, and my death is all for Allah. But this is unstable. My iman is not feeling high. And there was a lot of problems that it brought about. It brought about so many problems. And I just thought to myself, something is not okay here. And I started to sense that, this guy, obviously, and I'm just saying, I started to sense this guy, Anjem Chowdhury, was somewhat of a charlatan,
See, some people think that he was like a plant, but I don't agree.
Yeah, I don't think he was.
I think he was legit. Like, no,
he was
in terms of he actually believed.
Yeah, he believed in what he was calling to. He wasn't a plant. He wasn't a plant. And when you look at him, he met obviously Umar Bakri Muhammad. Now, if he had met somebody different, he could have been in a different trajectory. See, but he met Umar Bakri at that time because, like I said, the political dissidents make their way in London and spread what they want to spread in that place. I started to think that, okay, this guy's somewhat of a charlatan. My religion my mum's telling me, Khalid, stop this madness, stop being with these people. I felt as if it was something unsustainable. And my friends in my local area started going to durus classes in hifz, memorization of the Quran. So I started to go there. Then I just realized I'm not spiritually being fed. I'm spiritually dry, like a desert. So I started to memorize the Quran. And from there, you know, I looked at some of the brothers and I brought some brothers that I know to a lecture. I brought them to a lecture, and obviously my kind of tabi'ah, my makeup, my kind of, the kind of person I've been raised by my parents is, I've never heard my parents gossip about other people in their homes. Never heard my parents loudmouth anyone else, say something bad, swear at other people, gossip. So that's just not my inclination. So when I sometimes would go and hear them make takfir on people like Ibn Uthaymeen, Ibn Baz, make fun of a lot of Tulab al-Ilm in the UK, call this one that, call that one this. I brought some friends with me one time to one of their lectures, 2010-ish, 11. And they were just like, look, Khalid, man, this is not haqq, like, this is not haqq. And even though I thought to myself, yeah, this isn't haqq, man.
SubhanAllah.
This isn't haqq. A huge portion of those brothers ended up leaving. I was, you know, there were some brothers had some meetings, you know, bro, people were like, we don't want to do this no more. And everyone just spread and left and did what they want to do. And mashallah, a lot of those brothers now are doing actually positive things with their life. And are doing, mashallah, you know, they have madrasas, teaching kids Quran, doing this, opening businesses, doing things which are positive. But then I came to a crossroads, and that was, what do you do from here? Because you started off with Jama'at al-Tabligh.
Yeah.
You know, mashallah, 40 days up and down this place. Oh, not 40 days, but 3 days. And it was an adventure. You're young. You went to a bit to, you know, some Salafi events and this masjid and that masjid, and you listened to some mashayikh. And then you went off and ran off with these people. What's the common denominator here? And I thought to myself, and I was 18 at the time, and I said, the common denominator in all these things is that you don't speak the Arabic language.
SubhanAllah.
That's what it is. So everyone's able to fool you. And I thought to myself, I used to literally wake up sometimes and think, well, who am I going to be with next? You know, which jama'ah am I going to wake up next to, you know? Am I going to be, you know, with a big turbo with the cone thing coming out, you know, Sufiya, or, you know, what's going to be next? So I said to myself, look, Khalid, you're 18 years old, okay? You've got some time to spare, in a sense where you're going to get older and you're going to be mashghool, you're going to be very busy, and you're not going to have time to do certain things with your life. Invest just a few years now. Try to learn the Arabic language so you can just verify what's being said. Not become a scholar, not become a student of knowledge, so you can just verify what some brothers are saying. Is what they're saying true? That came about because I started reading some books from Ibn Uthaymeen. I started reading some books, you know, his Thalathatul Usul, Aqidah Wasatiyya, 3 fundamental principles, the Aqidah of Wasatiyya. I read some other books and I just said, you know what, I'm going to go and learn Arabic. Went to go and learn Arabic, and my life just changed from there, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me. You know, I went to, obviously I started off in East London.
You started the Arabic
I started in London, yeah. I studied Arabic for about almost 3 years in London. I started learning the Arabic language in London. Some brothers in Al-Madinah. I went to an institute, you know, in East London, the Tayyibun Institute. Went there, was there for about 2.5 years. Amazing teachers, amazing brothers. And just the hype went down. You know, I just humbled myself. And you know, when you're studying the Arabic language, you know, you've got something like al-ma'rifah and nakira, things that I can't translate now, but just certain rules. So you have like al-ma'rifah, al-nakira, al-mudaf, al-mudaf ilay, sifa al-mawsuf, or na'at al-man'ut, whatever you want to call them. You've got, for example, al-jar al-majroor, you've got atf, you've got al-istithna, you've got al-badal, you've got this, you've got that, you've got all these rules. And I thought, hold on. So if this is the Arabic language, what about Islam? You know, this is just Arabic. You know, I'm just reading. You know. So from there, I just thought to myself, okay, humble yourself, and just start to learn. That put a love into, you know, wanting to study and seek knowledge. I applied for Al-Madinah, the University of Madinah, in 2011. Just turned 19, and I went on Umrah there. I have some family who live in Jeddah. I stayed with them. And that's when my perception of the world changed, because I remember with these takfiri brothers, everyone's a kafir, this leader's kafir, everyone who works for the taghut is a taghut, or some rubbish like that. And I remember, and taghut, for those who don't know, is the taghut in the word taghut in Arabic language, they will say it's the personification of anything which is worshipped other than Allah, anything which is obeyed in anything that Allah should be obeyed in. But the problem with the takfir is that they personify and make the taghut one particular thing, when if you read the kalam of the statement of the mufassirun, this is something else. But that's a whole other issue. So I remember I was in Jeddah praying with my cousin, and I remember Fajr would come, and I remember we're praying Fajr in the masjid, mashallah. So the masjid, the salah will end, and a police officer came in. I remember police officer came in, and he prayed the salah. And I remember that was the first time in my life I'd seen a police officer pray a prayer. I remember before when I was in Niger, where my mom comes from, I remember I saw a soldier one time praying his salah. That was amazing. But I remember I saw this police officer praying, and I thought to myself, how is this man a kafir? According to what the takfiris say. What's he doing that's kufr? He's putting his head on the ground, making sujood to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and upon tawheed. He's not washing the grave, not washing anything else. Humble, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, Salat al-Fajr, in his police officer uniform, he's come to the masjid to pray Salah. How is this? And it was just something like that. It was just common sense. Sometimes common sense doesn't need an explanation, which is why, a famous poet, Al-Mutanabbi, a famous Iraqi poet who unfortunately because of his poetry got himself murdered, unfortunately. But Al-Mutanabbi is saying that he's seen as the greatest poet in Arabian shi'r. He said, وَلَيْسَ يَصِحُّ مِنَ الْعُقُولِ شَيْءٍ إِذَا احْتَاجَ النَّهَارُ إِلَى الدَّلِيلِ. He says nothing makes a person's mind, nothing is okay from a person's mind, in a person's mind, if he's saying, what's the dalil for the afternoon? You can't, the afternoon is right there. You don't need to ask somebody about the afternoon, There's even another, just another line, it was so funny, the Muslim philosophers at one point, they were philosophizing everything to the point where they would, they would, if when the scholars would say something or refute some of the philosophers, they'll come and bring something even more philosophical to confuse what the scholar was saying. So one poet, he came and he said, وفسر الماء بعد الجهد بالماء وكأننا والماء من حولنا قوم جلوس حولهم ماء. He said that there was a philosopher, he looked at water and he wanted to give a tafsir of water. How do I give a tafsir of water? How do I give a beautiful explanation of water the way Aristotle would do it? How would he do it? And the poet mocks him. He says, وفسر الماء بعد الجهد بالماء. After spending so much time pondering on what water is, his tafsir for water was that it's water. And he came with nothing. Certain things that just don't need to be explained. So I don't need a sheikh to be screaming to me about kufr bil-taghut to see that this man praying is a Muslim. And even the fuqaha of Islam say, فَإِن صَلَّى فَمُسْلِمٌ حُكْمًا. If anyone prays and you see them praying their salah, the warning is that they're Muslims. When I saw that, I was just like, this is, my whole world view changed, and that led on to obviously me applying for Al-Qasim and going.
This is what I wanted to speak about this because you actually went to study in Qasim. This is quite unusual, right? Everyone wants to study in Medina, right? Obviously the Medina, the city of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Mashallah, Nabawi, or even Mecca maybe.
Yeah.
But often when people get the opportunity to study in Qasim or even Riyadh, people don't accept it.
Yeah.
Because this is kind of a real test on who really wants to study, right?
So I guess so.
And I've been to Buraidah, Qasim, where, and we were just speaking about that it's not an easy city.
Yeah, it's not. It really isn't.
What took you to? How did you get to?
Okay, so I applied for Al-Madinah, and I went to Al-Madinah. And from the process of or from the time I applied to Al-Madinah to getting into Al-Qasim, my life was just Al-Madinah. It was just try to get into Al-Madinah, try to study in Al-Madinah, have dreams about Medina, watch YouTube videos about Medina, and go on medinastudents.co.uk every single day to see if your name's on the list. While reading about Medina, there was a group of brothers from Canada. They had a website. I remember. I don't know if it's still on. Hopefully, it's still there. But I used to read. I used to just sit in my house and just read. I used to just read the same pages again and again and again. I remember I read, for example, so Muhammad Tim Humble, when he was a student there, he had one called "So You Want to Be a Student," little blog spot. Then another blog spot was called Al-Kanadina or something like Al-Kanadina. Some Canadian brothers wrote about their time in Al-Medina. On their links, they had links to another brother's profile. There was another brother there called Kamil Ahmed. He graduated from Medina and he studied his masters in Al-Qasim, and he spoke about, I clicked on his profile and he spoke about his move from Al-Medina to Al-Qasim and how they're opening that place for foreign students to go and study. So I thought, okay, well, Saudi being Saudi, I just need to get my Medina application and just send it to Al-Qasim. So obviously, alhamdulillah, my sister, was an English teacher in the Riyadh. So I just sent her my things. I emailed it to her and I just said, could you just send this via post to the University of Al-Qasim? I didn't know if he was going to get there. I heard about, for example, how certain things in that part of the world can just get lost.
Did you know what Qasim was at the time?
The only thing I knew was that it was where Ibn Uthaymeen came from.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah.
Knew nothing. And I just knew that, look, if I get into Al-Qasim, then if there's scholars, I'll study with scholars there. If not, we'll drive from city to city. We'll do what we have to do to study. There's another brother, mashallah, who got accepted with me, a brother Muhammad Abdul Rahman. And mashallah, we went there. And it was not easy, but alhamdulillah, we made it out alive. He graduated, I graduated, or I'm going to graduate in the next 5-10 days. So alhamdulillah,
So you were in the desert for 6 years.
Yeah, I was in the middle of nowhere.
Those who don't know, tell us it, because Qasim is like the real deal Saudi.
Yeah, Qasim is.
It's literally camels.
Yeah,
sand.
You don't get more Saudi than Al-Qasim. The way there's nothing more American than a nice apple pie from Texas or something. It's as Saudi as you get. No, Qasim is a region of Saudi Arabia where it's traditionally the breadbasket of the kingdom. It's very green. A lot of businessmen come out of there, and it's known for a lot of scholars as well. So Sheikh Saadi came from there, Sheikh Ibn Uthaymeen came from there, another Sheikh called Ibn Aqil came from there, Sheikh Fontain. So many scholars, illustrious scholars, come from Al-Qasim. Very remote, very socially conservative. I'd like to repeat that, socially conservative, because a lot of the time when we go to some Muslim countries, we can sometimes differentiate between religiosity and conservatism. No, you can have a Muslim who's socially conservative, but he has sins himself, but he doesn't want his people to change. He wants them to be upon what they are, because conservatism means to conserve your morals and to conserve your way of life, to conserve. Okay, so it's mashallah socially conservative. There's a lot of scholars there. A great number of the countries, if you like, billionaires and multimillionaires come from Al-Qasim because they were traditionally businessmen. So it's nice. The College of Sharia is nice. Big emphasis on family. It's not the hustle and bustle, even though it's the city itself is developing and becoming bigger. But yeah, definitely speaking, it's a remote place to be.
Mashallah, their culture is they're very generous. I remember when I went to Buraidah about 6, 7, I can't remember, maybe 7 years ago. You told me it's changed since then, but when I first went, I wasn't exactly supposed to be there. The brothers, some young brothers, kind of smuggled me out of Medina. I put all the the thing, and the police are looking at me just like.
Okay.
And then got to Buraidah, and the brothers, they took me to the policeman. They said, "Look, this is our friend. He's going to be here for a few days or whatever. So if you see a white man, don't be scared." And first thing they did, they took me to the farm. They said, "Pick a sheep." The traditional Islam. Picked a sheep, they slaughtered the sheep, and then they cooked it that evening.
Wow.
They were very, mashallah.
Oh, mashallah,
very generous. And this is my kind of introduction to real Saudi, because being in Medina, Mecca, you got people from all over the world. You don't really feel what Saudi, you don't get to meet actual many Saudis.
That's very true.
You know,
That's
so-
very no, that's very true. That's very true. And obviously,
So you kind of have the real deal
yeah,
experience.
yeah, real deal experience, real deal experience. You know, it's just like if you wanted to, for example, experience Britain, then obviously you can come to London, but there's only so much of Britain you can experience. Sometimes you need to go to a nice rural place where the people, still have, if you like, quote unquote, old British values and still do, those old school things, and you maybe go and see, certain farmyards and see kind of a traditional way of life, just like that. So, same thing, just the same thing.
So I want to speak a little bit about life after. Usually, I'm always asking students, life after Madinah.
Yeah.
But it's not life after Madinah. It's life after studying. You know, what happens now? What are you supposed to do? Because a lot of students, they struggle to find their thing.
Oh, 100%.
You know,
100%.
what's needed now?
Okay, well, before we even answer that question, we need to, number one, understand the mindset of a student who goes abroad to study. You have two types of brothers who come to study, and I think it's very, very, very important to speak about this. The first kind of person you have that goes to study is a person who wants to study the religion of Islam and wants to one day even try to be a scholar. There's nothing wrong with that. For some reason in the UK, you can never, a student of knowledge can never be a scholar. You constantly, you can only translate. No, you should have ulu al-himma. You should have high, lofty aspirations. If you want to be a scholar of Islam, that's something khayr, that's very good. You should, why the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, al-ulama warathatul anbiya, the scholars are inheritors of the prophets. For you to want to be a scholar is something which is praiseworthy. You have that kind of student. Then you have the second kind of student. Second kind of student is a guy who only God knows what's happening with his life, and he's running away from something. These are the two types of students. The guy who's running away from something never wants to kind of sometimes give da'wah, is miserable with his life, doesn't think about the future, doesn't think about his life decisions, and he exists and he doesn't live. So he allows the flow, the current of life. If life was a river, he allows the current of life to blow him anywhere. He doesn't take, he doesn't kind of, if you like, take things by the scruff of the neck and go and take an initiative. So I would say that brothers in Al-Madinah, not all of them. I know brothers in Al-Madinah, brothers studying, because I was a student in Al-Madinah, but obviously I met with many brothers. I stayed in Al-Madinah plenty of times, but brothers who go abroad to study in institutions abroad, and I can talk about Saudi Arabia, a lot of the time worry. And they worry about what they're going to do post, that time, because it's you're living in a bubble away from everything, where everything is so beautiful and in order and structured, and you're in your small little bubble where, and the idea of coming back to, a capitalist society where it's dog eat dog is very scary. After, having your shimaghan and your kitab tawheed and your, it can be very scary. So, people think about that.
You still have that in Brixton.
MashaAllah. So I would say that with regards to life after graduation, it's much more difficult thinking about it while you're in Saudi than it is living it. It's not as hard as what people think. You just have to come back and you just have to make the best out of your situation, but you need to have an aim and objective as to what you're doing. So of course you're going to come back. A lot of the time, for lack of a better word, you might have not have worked for 4, 5, 6 years, unless you did some part-time work in the summer. You're basically starting off your life in your late 20s the way an 18-year-old will start. But look, you don't have a criminal record, okay? You are not, you're not an offender or anything like that. You can come back and make something with yourself. It's what you make of it. You have to, and that's one of the nasa'ih I would love to give to the brothers, is that it's what you make of it. Make incremental steps to try to plan for your future, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make it easy. I think another thing that will make it easy is giving da'wah. Give back with your knowledge, because once you give back, okay, because you have two groups of students. You have the students who want to give da'wah and maybe are not studying enough, and then you have the brothers who study a lot but don't give no da'wah. Be a balanced student. Study as much as you can, because you need to study. You know, I'm not with the, you know, I've seen students who give da'wah more than they study. No, you need to be reading and studying 2 hours a day, 3 hours a day. But what I would say is this, is give da'wah because you don't know where your rizq is. You don't have to give da'wah for the sake of money. But sometimes when you're good at something and you do something for the sake of Allah, Allah will give you rizq from places where you didn't know. You know, وَمَنْ يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا وَيَرْزُقْهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبُ. Whoever fears Allah, Allah will make a way out for him and will give him rizq from where he doesn't know. You give da'wah a small masjid. A person sitting in that khutbah who maybe is in association with another masjid. The other masjid now calls you to give da'wah. That masjid now maybe has a camera. Someone records your durus. Someone in another part of the world benefits, asks you a question. And before you know it, you build a network. And then before you know it, you're doing things positively for the sake of Allah. Allah will open doors for you, but you have to try. Don't sit in your ivory tower and just think that, yeah, these guys need to come to me. Akhi, nothing's going to come to you. Go out and try. And sometimes people are very nervous. What are other students of knowledge going to say about me? I'm giving da'wah. What are they going to say? Akhi, forget about what they're going to say about you, bro. If you're trying to teach the average Muslim brother who doesn't know nothing in Islam something, why do you have to feel guilty about that if you're studying? You know, I used to just not understand that, John.
That is so powerful. I'm telling you, you find a lot of the time people care so much about what people think.
Exactly.
But look, you've studied at an institute. You know you've got the truth.
Exactly.
You know, you've studied what you studied.
Exactly.
And you're teaching the lay people on the street.
Exactly.
The average person doesn't know hardly anything about Islam.
Exactly.
They maybe just know how to pray. Or maybe some don't even know that.
Exactly.
What are you worried about?
Exactly.
You know, why all this? They're scared about all this. Exactly. And you know, I've noticed among students, sadly, there's a lot of jealousy and beef and problems. You know, always worrying about, you know, feeling they've got to kind of live up to, you know, this
particular standard.
It's a lot of pressure.
There is pressure, and I remember I would say to some brothers, you know, and I would just say, you know, look, akhi, think about when you weren't practicing the religion, and think about when you knew nothing, how grateful you would be for someone to come and teach you. We've got brothers and sisters, people who are born Muslim, people who are not born Muslim, people who came into their religion, people who started practicing late in their life. They live in neighborhoods like here in Brixton, okay, where people might not have a Muslim infrastructure, they might not have a family. Why not go out and teach these people their religion? What is so bad about that? Allah said, وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ قَوْلًا مِمَّنْ دَعَى إِلَى اللَّهِ وَعَمِلَ صَالِحًا وَقَالَ إِنَّنِي مِنَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ قَوْلًا, what is a better word, مِمَّنْ دَعَى إِلَى اللَّهِ, than a person who calls to the religion, calls to Allah, وَعَمِلَ صَالِحًا, and does good, and says, إِنَّنِي مِنَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ, I'm from the Muslims. Nothing better than that. This is the wadif of the Anbiya. This is the job of the prophets. No one's saying you have to be perfect. No one's saying that you're an angel. No one's saying that, you know, you don't sometimes get angry, you don't sometimes get upset. We are a human being. Giving da'wah does not mean you're better than someone. And the reality is you
will make mistakes.
That's it.
That's the problem. Sometimes you're so scared of making mistakes, you're still going to make mistakes.
That's it.
You're a human being.
That's it. Exactly.
SubhanAllah.
Another thing is some brothers think that you have to be out on a state of perfection to give da'wah. Every single person commits sins. No one's better than another person. Just because you're giving da'wah does not mean you're doing tahajjud every night. It doesn't mean that. But if you sincerely, for the sake of Allah, want to educate people, for Allah's sake, not for fame, but for Allah's sake, you want this religion to spread. What's wrong with that? You shouldn't feel guilty about having that aim. So,
you know, I want to ask you, since studying, how have you kind of viewed, like, have you been back to Nigeria?
I haven't been back to Nigeria for a long time. Yeah.
Okay. That'll be interesting.
I definitely I want to go back.
You have to join us in Nigeria.
Inshallah.
You know, we used to do a big conference in Kano. It'd be great to have you. No, we have to.
I definitely plan to go back and visit my country because
that would be amazing. I'd love to see.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, be interesting as a student. You know, going back.
It would be.
And kind of visiting and kind of analysing and
the situation there. No. Definitely, I want to go back to my homeland. I feel a great. I feel indebted to where I come from. I feel indebted to my people, you know, the House of People, not because of anything tribal or because of, if you like, asabiyya, because of, tribalism. No, but I feel indebted because I come from a place where if my ancestors never became Muslim, I wouldn't have been Muslim. So I feel indebted to them.
Exactly.
And I definitely want to go out there and, you know,
And
see
even
where I come from.
that's an important point, because look, you might not agree with certain practices within that particular culture or the particular type of Islam that they may be following, but at the same time you're recognizing that you do kind of have that benefit from that as well.
Definitely.
Being raised and born as a Muslim.
Exactly.
You can't.
That's true. That's 100%. You know, I do feel indebted.
You know, I thought you were Somali. And you know, I'm actually happy. I'm happy in Nigeria. I'm like, yes, mashallah.
Yeah. I remember I was speaking to Abu Usama. I talked to Abu Usama, you know. I don't see it personally.
No.
I was speaking to Abu Usama and I said, you know, Sheikh Abu Usama, do you advise me to go to such and such masjid and speak about such and such an issue? And he was like, yeah, man, you know, being from the Somali community, Khalid, you know. And I was like, bro, I'm from Nigeria, you know. Like, I don't understand. So no, I personally don't see, but yeah. So that's what it is, yeah. So
I'm happy to see, mashallah.
Another thing I want to do is, sorry, John, for interrupting, is there's a big weakness in seeing a lot of brothers from West Africa. You have a lot of practicing brothers, but a lot of brothers or a lot of Muslims who've come from West Africa might come from the French-speaking parts of West Africa or parts where Islam has become weak through colonialism or whatever it might have been. And they've just been lost in the society. So if they can see someone that's, you know, from where they come from as well, giving da'wah, learning their religion, it can even bring them back to their religion, you know. And that's something.
You know, you're speaking about the culture as well and the history, you know, of West Africa.
Yeah.
Even though, as we said, we may not agree with the particular practices of certain things, but I still teach people the history.
Yeah.
To kind of get this identity of being proud of being, you know, West African, Muslim, and trying to attach people with this huge Islamic history, you know.
Huge Islamic history. People don't know, Akhi. You have the University of Sankore in Mali, Akhi al-Kareem. Over 6,000 manuscripts, okay? One of the first, they recorded in the manuscripts that they successfully removed a cataract from a person's eye. This is 700, 800, 900 years ago, you know. So
the kingdom of Mansa Musa, Osman Dan Fodio,
you know, Askia Muhammad, too much, man. You know, even in Chad, you know, the kingdoms of Khan and Borno and all these things. So definitely speaking, you know, there's a lot of khair. It's culturally diverse. So, you know, it just shows how Islam. It just shows how, you know, how international Islam is. And it's always funny when people talk about, you know, more, you know, there's a lot of Muslims now entering into Europe. Could it change the demographics? Islam has always been in Europe. Islam was in Andalus for 800 years, you know, almost 800 years. So yeah, Akhil Kareem, you know, it's been on their doorstep for a long time. So, you know, when you see Spanish people, for example, having a nap called a siesta, that comes from the Arabic qaylula of falling asleep, you know, in the afternoon, because al-qayl is the shiddatul har, it's the intense heat of post-dhuhr, that post-dhuhr heat is known as al-qayl, so they would sleep. But no, akhi, you know, when you dig deep, you find that Islam is in many, many places that you might be surprised. So, yeah, akhi, man, long may it continue in the West, inshallah ta'ala, you know. So,
do you have any other points, last points?
I would just say the last thing I wanted to say was for students of knowledge now, you know, coming back, and we want our brothers who are studying, mashallah, the masters, the PhD, getting their bachelors and doing things, the importance of building institutions. We're here now, and obviously, mashallah, Madinah College, and we only have a place. I only have a place to speak to right now because of the fact there's an institution here. Otherwise,
we're going to put all the details as well.
Inshallah,
yeah, you know,
inshallah, where to find it.
You do online as well.
Yeah, there's online stuff there
so
as well.
You can study online. You can study also in the
place.
You know, I think it's important to have institutes in the UK outside of the masjid. What do you think of that?
I agree.
I agree. I think it's just a certain thing about UK.
Yeah.
That we need.
Institution outside the Muslim. Our vision should, or my vision, but our vision for UK should be it should be the India of the English speaking world. What do I mean by that? When I say the India of the Muslim world, India. Okay, when I say India, I'm talking about Pakistan, Bangladesh, India, the old India. Okay. Yeah. They were not native Arabic speakers, but it was still a place where scholars came out of India, scholars of hadith, scholars of tafsir, scholars of fiqh, okay? They came out of India. India produced so many scholars. We now in the UK live in a country where we have some of the best universities in the world. You know, everyone's economically doing okay for themselves. We're not starving hungry. With regards to building institutions like Madinah College, we need to have fiqh councils, Islamic research institutes, think tanks, people writing studies. We need to build for the next generation so that we can build off the ni'mah that we have.
And we need to be on top of the latest.
We need to be on top of the latest fitna.
Like we're going through challenges that don't exist in Breda.
That's it.
You know, brand new.
That's what I'm trying to say. So brothers need to accept the fact that, you know, mashallah, you know, you're Muslim, you can be Pakistani and British, you can be Somali and British, you can be Nigerian and British, you can be, you know, English and, you know, and still be a Muslim. There's nothing wrong with it. And everyone come together, put our heads together, study, and let's push towards the future. Let's be positive. Let's see the glass half empty rather than half full. And inshallah, Allah will bring us about, you know, khair. Like you said, you know, the masajid is one thing, and there's a lot of them in the UK. Let's push now for schools, research institutes, think tanks, and let's put our stuff together. And you know, we don't have to fight, we don't have to war. You know, we can get along. We can be civil as Muslims with one another. Inshallah, khair. You know,
so that's a beautiful advice. And the other thing is as well. Look, you might, you know, for the everyday Muslim, you know, they've got families, they're busy. They're not planning to be necessarily like students of knowledge, but you still have programs for them here, right?
Exactly.
You know, the basics, getting a very good grounding with your faith, you know, and your children.
Yeah. So
mashallah,
it's been a pleasure.
Eye-opening.
Alhamdulillah, mashallah, wa iyyak, mashallah.
And I'm definitely, inshallah, next time I'm in London.
We'll link up.
And inshallah, Sheikh, we have to bring you to Kano.
Inshallah.
That'll be amazing.
Definitely, inshallah.
And my plan, of course, I'm focusing more on Africa.
Mashallah,
and I want to bring more, like, more people from the West, like ourselves, because they accept it more from us for some reason.
Exactly.
You know, like you, because you're from London, you go there, people like, you know. But sadly, you know, they don't accept from the local.
From local.
So, inshallah.
Definitely.
And I'm very happy to meet you.
Definitely. Jazakallah khair. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
إنك لا تهدي من أحببت ولكن الله يهدي من يشاء